The Kinky Cocktail Hour is brought to you by Motor Bunny, the world's most powerful saddle-style vibrator that offers fabulous creative sexual experiences. We use it and it rotates, it vibrates, and it delivers mind-blowing orgasms. Enjoy Motor Bunny as your favorite sex toy. When you order the Motor Bunny, multiple attachments are included along with the Link controller, which allows wireless control from anywhere. Motor Bunny is the world's most powerful saddle-style vibrator on Earth. Use the link in the show notes and spice up your sex life with a Motor Bunny. You're listening to Kinky Cocktail Hour, a conversation between adults about sex-forward relationships, kinky lifestyles, and frank communication. If you're under 18, please stop listening and visit scarletteen.com. Hi, this is Lady Petra.
I'm SafferMaster.
And this is Kinky Cocktail Hour.
Cheers.
Cheers!
So, what are we drinking tonight?
Well, since my meds have been tempered back a bit, we are enjoying a gin martini, dry, of course.
I do love gin martinis. They are my favorite bar drink. I think if I ever go into a bar and do not order a gin martini, then I'm making a mistake.
Well, I think you did excellent because you made this one today, and it's perfect.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah, I like to judge bartenders by the way they make a gin martini.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you can tell the way a bartender cares for their craft by whether they stir or shake to begin with a gin martini, and when they do stir it, how they stir it.
Yes.
And so, you know, you have to have the stirring spoon, and you got to have the stirring skill.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, it's a delicious drink. Okay, well, with you in surgery, or coming out of surgery, I should say, we're having a bunch of interviews, doing movie reviews to sort of keep our pod going.
Right.
And tonight, we get to interview the Kinky Introverts. And this is a couple who are pretty recent to the lifestyle and who have a really interesting podcast, and the way that they explore their kink, and we'll ask them about it, but the way they explore their kink is by exploring it, you know, almost live and then asking questions and so forth. So it's a really great way to interact with the community. And so I wanted to introduce Brian and Kitty.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
So welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much.
A few questions for you guys. So first of all, how are you guys surviving the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, it started off pretty great because Brian got to stay home with me. And, and then he had to go back to work. So we're already introverts. We already like being home. So it was not a huge change to our lives.
No, it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like being at home for the same reason.
Yep.
You know. And then now, of course, the country's burning, and as a Black woman, I'm interested in knowing how what's been going on has been impacting you.
I'm coping, trying to deal. Probably drinking more than usual.
We all are.
I think we're all drinking more than usual. Yeah, it's really quite something, you know, and I just hope that as a country we can figure out how to deal with our past, you know.
Yeah.
For sure. And also, you know, seeing a mixed race couple in the kink world is really a positive way to interact with, you know, the world of racism as it exists in America. Why not, you know, everybody just be with everybody?
Right.
Very poly of you.
Yeah. Anyway, so tell us a little bit about you guys. So how did you discover the world of kink? Like, what was your access to it?
For me, it was me and a friend of mine at work. We used to just talk about things, you know, and she would be like, I was on Reddit and I read this thing about X, Y, and Z, you know, and I'd say, oh, and I read about this thing. And we said, I wonder how you get into that world. And I'm a researcher and a note taker. So I just started looking into it, and I ran into FetLife, you know, and then from Fet, I was like, well, what if I start going out and going into the community and learning about these different things? And then once I started learning about it, just kind of got hooked from there.
Yeah. So did you go to Munches and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Munches and workshops.
Yeah. So if you were to give somebody advice about going to Munches, what advice would you give them?
I always start with, nobody is going to try to flog you. You do not need to pull out your best latex suit or your leather. You're really just
they
going
wear
to meet
normal
people
clothes?
Normal clothes. I can't believe it. And you may even just talk about movies all night.
So once you started sort of going to Munches, like, how did you discover what your kink is? Well, let me ask you this. I know that you're exploring, and I see that in the way that you're approaching your pod, but, you know, where are you landing in the world of kink? Like, what have you discovered?
So I was previously married, and I think, like we all start out, it was like, I'm going to be a submissive and I'm going to be the best submissive ever. And just kind of learned that, not that I can't be a submissive, which was what I initially thought. I just don't like overpowering aggressive dominance. Then I later discovered, when playing with others, that I'm a sadist. And I would like to say I'm a sweet sadist. I bury my halo balances nicely on my horns. And then from there, getting with Brian, I realized that I absolutely have a submissive side and a service submissive side. And I want to be everything for him while also hurting him. So definitely switchy.
So, Kitty, I have to totally agree with you on that. I am fascinated that you're both switches, because I'm a switch. And when I first came into the community, you know, I wanted to be a slave, of course. It was all hierarchical, right? You had to be the top, right? Be the best, right?
Yeah.
And, but I didn't want to be a piece of furniture. I quickly found out I have an identity. I didn't want to, I had to think about, like, I might sleep on the floor for the rest of my life. No.
Right.
And so as a switch, people get confused, and you experience this too, but, you know, I am deeply total power exchange submissive to my daddy, my sir, my master, my dom. And because I've chosen him. And then everybody else, screw it, I'm dominant.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, is that my submission is a gift. And I just wonder how it sounds like you see it similarly, and it's just one of those discoveries as a switch that I think is amazing. And really, I think only switches I understand it.
Right. I know that, especially, it feels like when you walk into a room and everybody sees the female, and if you're not, I guess, presenting in a, like, strong, standing up straight, staring people in the eye dominant way, people kind of see you as must be a submissive of some sort. And so those comments always come across like, oh, I'd like to bend you over and spank you. Like, I will break you, you know? So yeah, I think you do get kind of just looked at, you know, just from a quick glance, like, you must be this type of person. And, like, I don't need to strut around with my chest out to prove that I'm dominant, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the difference. We talked about people that are domineering versus truly dominant. I mean, it switches. What's wonderful about us, I think, is we can just, it's a switch. We literally can switch it. We have that kind of skill set to make that switch and fully commit to the side that we're observing at that moment, and fully be there. There's not a confusion. And I think that's what people think, is they think, well, you're role playing, then you're pretending. I'm like, no, there's no way I'm role playing. If I'm submissive to my partner, I'm completely there.
Right. Absolutely.
How about you, Brian? When did you discover your interest in the world of kink?
For me, I guess it was, all started, I guess, as a kid, kind of just seeing kind of some blood and cutting kind of thing, I guess. And so it just kind of stuck in the head for quite a few years without really pursuing anything with it. So just years went past, and I never did the FetLife thing and all that. And so I just kind of didn't really get involved in any of the kink scene. And then I kind of met her, you know?
Gotcha.
So a lot of it's all new to me for the most part.
I got it. Yeah. It's interesting, you know, what we've discovered, and listening to your podcast, I get that you guys have discovered this also, and that is that in the world of relationship, your ability to connect with each other is really something that's way expanded because of the kink connection that really wasn't there for you previously.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, what we've discovered is, like, you know, there's people that move into scenes and move out of scenes, or people that role play their fetish roles in and out, and then there's people that are existing in those roles. And as switches, I mean, it's got to be fascinating because you could be switched at different times. And I was listening to one of your podcasts with a dominee recently, and I wonder if you guys use the same thing to kind of let each other know where you're at. Like, are you feeling dommy? Or are you feeling subby? How do you communicate that as switches to one another to see if you're both subs at the same time, or you're both, you know, moving in different directions?
I think I'm usually like, we don't call ourselves 24/7, but I'm absolutely his and ready to serve and do whatever I can do 24/7. And God, if I ever want to hurt him, I probably just, you know, hey, I want to punch you in the balls right now.
Yeah, those things come up.
That's probably my best way of communicating. And then it's like, do you want to do something tonight? I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to hurt you.
I love it. So do you have favorite fetishes at all?
God, yeah. Water sports.
Yeah.
Blood, definitely. So, you know, the scalpels
Just seeing
are.
it?
Say what?
Just seeing the blood, or what does that mean to me?
God, I want to cut him. I want to be cut by him. I want to lick his blood. I want him to lick my blood.
Yeah. Got it.
Sounding is one of our new favorites.
Yeah, I watched that podcast.
Yes, and after we did that, it's like, hey, want to do some more sounding tonight? So last night we did Eastham sounding, and it was amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So when you're playing with blood sport, how deep a cut do you make? Like, what's the guideline that you have for each other? Are you cutting through the skin? Are you cutting down to the muscle? Like, what are you doing?
We went to our local dungeon a while ago, and we kind of got like cutting lessons. And then before then, I got cutting lessons from another friend of mine before I moved here. So it's basically you take your scalpel and you see like the little shaved edge, like the little bevel or whatever. Yep. And so you keep it within that beveled edge and don't go any deeper than that.
Gotcha. So pretty shallow.
Yeah.
Enough to get just a little bleeding.
Exactly.
You're not getting gushing.
No, no arteries.
That's probably a good thing, yeah.
Yeah. It can turn into a decent amount, though, with enough cuts.
It can.
Yeah.
So when you do the cuts like that, are they staying for a sustained period of time? Do you notice them staying, or they tend to fade?
They fade a little, but I have his name carved into my chest. He has my name carved into his chest.
Mm-hmm.
I've got permanent scars on my ass and the back of my legs.
Yeah. So do you sometimes redo them to make sure that they're clear?
The names we redo. The scars.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, the scars on the back, they're probably gonna be there
Yeah,
forever.
they're pretty noticeable.
I told him I'm his for life now.
Yes. Well,
Call
and
me
it
up
sounds
and then send me away.
It sounds like that's, a typical high protocol type marking for you guys. That's your ownership marking of one another.
I absolutely love it for that reason.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
She definitely scars a lot better than me, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, all the cutting she's done for the most part, except her name in my chest, which we've redone 3 or 4 times now, and it's still way more faded than any cuts I've done on her one time. So
Right. And that's the skin tissue, the keloids that build up. But, you can do things with, you'd have to read on this. Don't take me for verbatim, but I know you can do things with ash and things to make things keloid differently. Yeah. And then, but also you may also just enjoy the remarking of one another. I mean, that might be something that you just enjoy. So that's kind of a tender moment for you guys. I think that's really exciting.
Absolutely.
Have you guys tried that cell popping?
That's on the list. So next thing we're looking up, the thing that we're researching now is branding and different ways to brand. So, hot, cold, cell popping, violet wand branding, like we're looking into all that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You guys are fearless.
trying it all.
Oh, definitely. And we just happen to just go straight to the deep, dark, heavy side.
Why not?
We were cutting on like date number 2, I think.
We were.
So
it was a
it
situation.
kind of escalated quickly.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. I'm really fascinated by one of your podcasts that you do monthly. That is I think you call it your layered kink podcast, where you do 5 cards. You must have some kind of, I don't quite know exactly what it is, but tell me about it, because it sounds like it's a great way of unfolding kink to even inexperienced kinksters.
So the layered kinks, we still need to build the actual card deck, and it's like part way done, but I need to finish it up and then purchase like an actual 52 card set. But basically, we have a stack of note cards right now, and they all have different kinks on them. And we will go through and pull 5 cards, look at it, and then
at random without seeing them.
At random, negotiate down to 3 cards that we think will flow well together, and then we play those cards, and we basically layer those kinks. And so in that way, you don't get stuck in the same thing, because like if you're with somebody long enough, whether you're playing or having sex, it's like, okay, first we start out in missionary, then we start out in doggy style, then we end it here, and you kind of get stuck in this rut, and you can get in that same sort of play rut, like first we're gonna flog, then we're gonna this. And so instead of getting stuck in a rut, we challenge each other, like, let's see if we can build a scene based off of just random cards and just have fun with it. And so it's a way of just not getting stagnant, not getting stuck doing the same thing, and also just seeing what things you can tie together for like the ultimate experience.
You're not just fearless, you're also experimental.
Yeah.
It's led to some of the best times, though, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I said absolutely because sushi.
Yeah, I got to eat sushi.
That's the alcohol talking. I really think that's really fantastic, because as switches, that is 2 switches together. That is necessary for sure. I mean, and what I hear is you both being, depending on whatever past relationships you've had and what you're opting for in this part of your life, you're being responsible to the dynamic, to the relationship, to keep it healthy. And I mean, I can't applaud you enough on being responsible, because you're right, complacency, it breeds disaster. And so you're absolutely in it for one another. And if you're both in it 100% zero on both sides, because you have to be that, you're responsible for the health of that dynamic. And that is what works for you. And that's the beauty of what you're sharing out there on the internet, is that vanillas may run across what you're doing and be like, oh, I'm already doing that. Maybe I am kinky,
Yeah.
And then be willing to explore something that they may not be aware of,
Right.
I think that's great. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. How did you conceive your podcast?
So this one, we spent a lot of late nights. we have a lot of discussions just in general, but a lot of them were revolved around kink. And we would just be up till 2, 4 in the morning, just talking about things we liked and things we wanted to try, and what if this and what if that. And I had this, and we still use it. We use a little handheld recorder, like we have nothing fancy. But one day I was like, why don't we just like record these and make a podcast? And so we did. We would just sit down and we'd get in the middle of one of our talks and I'd be like, hey, let me grab the recorder real quick. And we would just record. And so I think the first couple of episodes are really, they're just us rambling. And then, like I said, I'm a like list maker and organizer and all that. So then I started being like, let's do these in, you know, in a structured manner. And so we just would come up with topics and start talking about them.
Yeah, I love it. It's almost exactly how we occurred as a podcast as well.
Yeah.
Because we would just sit and have these really long conversations.
Yep.
And they're actually interesting conversations to me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm sure they're interesting to somebody else too, you know?
Exactly.
and
you
it
guys
turns,
record every day, don't you?
we do, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is actually
insane.
it's very interesting, you know, because the thing is we actually talk to each other every day.
Yep.
And so the reality is that we find things to talk about.
Yeah.
And sometimes the things we talk about are like current events, right? Because we live in the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
But we also, because we're in a power dynamic, we're in a 24/7 total power exchange dynamic, we have a lot of responsibility to being responsible for our relationship as it occurs.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of that experience is being in communication ongoingly.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to have a conversation every day, you know. And it's you know, when we were working out of the home, that would be how we reconnected at the end of the day. We'd sit down, have a drink, and have a conversation, right?
I love that.
And so that's how we created the Kinky Cocktail Hour, because that's what we're doing. We're having a Kinky Cocktail Hour.
Yeah.
It's very similar in the same vein as you guys did, just like being present to like how remarkable it is to have a relationship that's just so connected, you know.
Yeah.
Like people who aren't kinksters don't get how close kinksters can get. And so when you're actually having that conversation, it's just like such a face-to-face connection, you know.
Yep.
That
Absolutely.
the conversations that occur, they're very esoteric, and they cover a lot of ground, and they deal with the most personal and intimate aspects of relationship. And so I think that's what makes them interesting, is that, you know, a lot of people have relationships that are a little bit inauthentic, you know, and kink takes a lot of that inauthenticity out of relationship, in my experience.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Absolutely.
I think, you know, over the last 2 years of being called, you know, let's say claimed, and then I've been owned since last December. You know, the idea is we've had these conversations every single night we've gotten together. It doesn't matter what cocktail. We happen to have a cocktail because we enjoy that, but we sit down and we would hold it's nothing I ever had in my prior marriage. We're holding hands, intimately talking. There's no distraction, no TV's on, no cell phones are going. We're just talking. And it became a point where all of a sudden we're like, maybe we should record these. Like, I mean, like, these
Absolutely.
are deep conversations that we're having.
Absolutely. Yep.
I don't even care if anyone listens, to be honest, because for me, as a submissive to my dominant, I want to have this history on hand well after we're past, and be able to, either one of us, if we're beyond the other person, to be able to hear the other person. That just has a huge meaning to me. And I'm not trying to get dark here, but the reality is, when you finally find your partner, how do you explain that to your vanilla friends? I don't know how to explain that to them, that it is deeper than anything I've ever known.
Yep.
Like I'm 50 and I'm actually 52, but I'm 52 and I'm learning to like what love is. Like I told Sappho a while back, probably a year ago, but I was like, I used to watch love story movies and things like that and not identify with the over the top love. And I was like, that never happens. Come on, it's just bullshit. No one does that. That's ridiculous. And now I'm like crying during those movies because I'm like, yes, that happens.
Yeah.
No one knows I'm crying because I'm a kinkster, but the idea is that's what the deepness, the richness of the relationship in kink is unfounded by anything. I just think it's nowhere else.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I just sent you guys a message through your FetLife account from, it's a writing from Nookie Notes, and it's titled, "What Level of Kink Are You?"
Uh-huh.
And she has several levels. The first level is totally vanilla, no kink. And I think we all started there. And then it goes...
Wait a minute. I've been kinky for a long time.
But I think you started with totally vanilla, no kink. Then it goes to dreams and fantasies, kink level 1. Okay? Then it goes to compartmentalization, level 2 kink, right?
What is compartmentalization?
She defines it as it's most often recognized as bedroom only kink. But it's not the only
so
way.
I went from 0 to 3.
0 to 3, okay. 3 is lifestyle level kink, level 3.
Yes.
So these people embrace kink as part of their lives. And then there's lifestyle or professional level kink, which is different from the previous level by a factor of commitment. And I think that's where you and I live. Although maybe we live at level 5, which is extreme kink. You guys definitely live in extreme kink.
There's no holds bar at this point.
Well, I'll tell you how she defined extreme kink. She said, to be clear, by extreme, I don't mean anything negative. Simply means beyond what most people, even those in kink, could or would handle. They kink as part of their lives and identify easily in the right crowds as kinky. They enjoy meshing kink with their everyday life as part of their relationship dynamic. We definitely do.
Yeah, definitely.
They enjoy more extreme kink in various ways. We definitely do. They enjoy edge play, kink that pushes boundaries and identity of physical limits. We definitely do. And it's totalitarian power exchange, master slave, owner property type lifestyles. Definitely us.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like about that part is I think that's hierarchical again, like that's better than something else. I don't think that's better. I think it's just a commitment level, but it doesn't necessarily mean...
It's not a judgment. There's no judgment attached. It's really just a what's so, right? What's so about your level of kink? And she's just trying to define what the different stratifications are of different participation levels in kink.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, and then
so
she
have
finishes
you guys gone... Sorry, go for it.
Let's finish that up. So she goes, this level may be personal or professional or a mixture of both. And it need not be ongoing or consistent, as edge play is not really consistently sustainable, but totalitarian power exchanges can be full-time activity. We are definitely in a level 5 level of kink because we're in a total power exchange ongoingly. And clearly you guys are too, because you play on the edge of a knife. Seems.
Right. And that was again date number 2.
Yeah.
I really think you guys are level 5 because that's the misnomer in the community of what switches are. And as switches, you're level 5 because you move through that whole environment like you do. It's malleable. And that's what's hard for other people that aren't switches. They don't understand them that we move like that. We're very fluid. But let's be honest, if you're fluid, it gives you a ton of options. There's a lot more options.
Very much so.
Yeah, and so I think it's a fascinating, I'm excited to meet more switches, to be honest, because I've had not the greatest experience. I mean, on my profile on FetLife, I have 2. Obviously, I have my dominant profile, which is where I have my online slaves and that kind of thing. And then I have my submissive, which was attached to SafferMaster kind of thing. but people don't know them as the same. I almost feel like FetLife needs to have a way where we can put in our relationships that we're two people, that we're one of the same. That would be something to add to FetLife, to request, to say, listen, there's people that are switches. You're discriminating against switches, basically. You're asking us to only be one thing. And the idea is we're multiple things. And so the idea is we're property of this person, or we're dominant to this person, whatever. And I know that in the relationship part of FetLife, you can declare that. But I think in the main profile role that they give you to select from, they only give us one choice.
Yeah.
And that's misleading. And I think so just talking to you guys has inspired me to possibly just make myself my own submissive to Lady Petra, who's my dominant side, because that's what's happening. I'm submissive to SafferMaster, and of course to Lady Petra, and the Lady Petra calls the shots, basically. And so try to move in that direction of getting the community to understand what switches are, because I think we're the last bastion, if you will, of group. I mean, maybe there'll be other kinks that come up, but the reality is I think we're the ones that people don't understand yet. And we've interviewed a few dominés, and we haven't interviewed any masters yet. It would be interesting to interview some masters on this, but how they deal with a switch, or would they even consider a switch? Luckily, my master was, without misleading him, I was naive, so I thought I was a slave before I knew I was a switch. And so I came at him as a slave, and so of course he's interested. And then he pressed me on that level of slave, and I was like, no, I'm not going to be a chair, And I mean, like he was really good about it, the way he did it. He was thoughtful. He must have seen me before I saw myself, because he, are you going to sleep on the floor for the rest of your life for the next 30 years? I'm like, okay, maybe not. So then I went through that, that burning desire of like, oh, freak, now I'm not a slave. I'm not as good as everyone else, whatever that means, whatever that is, right? Yeah. And then I'm a submissive. So now I'm going to be the best submissive I can be. That's all I'm going to be. But I couldn't suppress. I mean, in my professional life, I'm a dominant, hugely dominant. That can't be suppressed. And additionally, I'm not going to relinquish my submissiveness to anyone but who I choose. And I've chosen already. So now game on, and that's what we're exploring now. So I just think anytime we get switches on, I'm excited, because I want to hear what your path is and collaborate and share, because I think that's the disinformation we need to get in the kink community.
Well, one thing that we do have coming up, and I just looked it up, is what we're trying to do is use Zoom as a place to have more, just like you're doing now, interviews, but group style, guided discussions. And one of them that I want to have, that we have listed for the 18th of August, is a conversation for switches, so we can all come together and talk about how we switch, and who we're submissive to, or who we're, dominance of, and things like that. So if you'd be interested in joining us for Switching is what I have it named right now. That'll be on the 18th.
I'm in.
You should totally invite her.
I'm in. And the reality is, if we can find a way as a collaborative to figure out how to better communicate to the community what switches are, like, you typically submissive say, just because I'm a submissive doesn't mean I want your dick inside me. Things like that, right? Those are the typical constructs of what submissives say, to say, hey, give me the respect. I'm not a pushover. At the same time, switches are not wishy-washy, which is often what's said to us. There is no confusion with my dominant master, dom, daddy, whatever you want to call. That he knows I'm his collared submissive. That's it. That's all there is.
Yeah.
I'm nobody else's, right? And so the reality is, everyone else is my bitch. And so how do we convey that and get the community to understand that, because I do think that's still out there.
Yeah, I concur.
So I'm excited about your podcast.
Awesome. I can't wait to do it.
Cool. Well, I will say it's really great to meet you guys.
Thank you.
Fellow Kinksters all around. Look forward to chatting with you later this week on your podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you making yourselves available and coming on our pod. And I thank you so much for doing so.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, for sure. And kink on, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, kink on.
That's it for today. You can find us on your favorite podcast directory. We also have an RSS feed. If you're interested in online coaching for Kinksters or online domination, you can visit our Patreon website at Lady Petra Playground. And if you're having comments or suggestions or drink ideas for our podcast, you can email me at ladypetraplayground@gmail.com.
That's it.
That's it.
Cheers.
Cheers.